Hi, everyone. I'm here with David Wright, who is a personal trainer at Parkway Athletic Club in Carson City. He's also one of our nutrition coaches. Thanks for being here, David.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
Okay, we're going to talk about something that's getting a lot of traction right now, and that's cardio. Are you doing too much? We're going to talk about a few variables when it comes to weight loss and getting fit, getting healthy, and how much does cardio play into that? And I've had the same opinion going way back to when I was playing football and even did a couple bodybuilding shows about cardio and trying to get really lean. So we're going to talk about that. And it's got to go hand in hand with your diet. First, if you're interested in interviews with personal trainers, doctors, nutritionists, subscribe to the channel. And if you want to know more about our weight loss program, use the QR code on the screen or the link in the description. So, David, you're a physique competitor. I don't want to hurt your feelings or anything, but I was looking at some of those before and after pictures before you got your hormones right. And boy, you were the ultimate skinny fat.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you were just skinny fat.
Right. Yep.
And yeah, and you were working hard. But my point is you're a physique competitor and you've learned a lot. You have a lot of experience. And so cardio, a lot of influencers are talking about this. And the more I do this and the longer I've done it, which is 50 years, I never put, when I was competing and, I had to put a lot of emphasis on cardio and, all kinds of different, high intensity interval training and stuff. When I was playing football, I had no choice because you had to condition for it. But after that, I really cut back on the cardio, and I would do maybe 20 minutes of cardio 2 or 3 times a week. That's it. And that's when I was in my 20s. And now I do a 20-minute walk. So my intensity is even lower. I'm just walking about 3 times a week, 4 times a week, maybe, for 20 minutes. And I do that for other reasons, just to get outside, get in the sunlight and all that stuff. But what are you hearing about cardio and what a lot of these fitness influencers are saying about it?
So there's a lot of mixed messages out there. So it's really important. First of all, I'm going to say that cardio, whether it's on a treadmill or it's walking in your neighborhood, super important for your overall health. And obviously, we want to be able to move and be active. So I mean, any kind of cardio that you can do and that's not overdoing it, and I'll go into that in a second, is extremely critical for your health. But what I will say also on that same topic is there's a lot of things going around out there that you know doing all of this cardio, let's say, just as an example, there's some different things going around out there that you come into the gym, if you happen to have equipment at home, maybe going on the stair mill, which is my current cardio that I do for myself as a physique competitor. But even just as someone who's just trying to get healthy, stay healthy, have that great cardiovascular health, you'll see some things online of, oh, do the stairs for an hour, or go and literally run on the treadmill for 45 minutes, or all of these things. And the thing that I want to emphasize is, depending on where your health is at. So when I say that, I'm talking about cardiovascular health. If you're, doing a steady state cardio like that, that's a really, really long time, especially if you're doing it daily or let's say 5 times a week. That's a lot of cardio. And if you're just someone who's trying to lose weight and, get healthy and just have better cardiovascular health and more endurance, things like that, but you're not an elite athlete of some sort, that's a lot of cardio. And what tends to go hand in hand with that, Steve, with these influencers and things like that is, eating this really big calorie deficit. For example, if somebody's following one of these online programs, it's just kind of cookie cutter, and there's a ton of them out there, which is unfortunate. Um, you know, 1,000 calorie meal plan, 1,200 calorie meal plan. And, the other part of this plan is, go do all this cardio because that's going to get you abs and get your body fat down. When in reality, for most people, especially if they're in that big of a calorie deficit, depending on your metabolism, everybody's definitely different there. But in this example, you know, what's going to happen is exactly what you mentioned in the very beginning, which is where, for instance, for me, I got very skinny, which was great. I was 260 pounds. I loved the fact that I went down to about 170. So that was great. However, I wasn't really, strength training that much or that heavy or, high reps or anything like that. I just started learning about the gym and the different, tools that we have here and the equipment to use and all that kind of stuff. And so I wasn't really building much muscle and I didn't have much, which is plain to see in some of those photos. So I was skinny fat. And how do we get to be skinny fat? Well, we can drop, weight and all these other things, but you'll notice if we don't start strength training, we don't get that muscle mass up. We might lose some fluid or different things like that, but you'll still have the body fat. And why is that? Overdoing cardio is a great way for that to happen, which is not a good thing, by the way. So we don't want to overdo the cardio. You want to include some, and you can sometimes up that cardio as you get more healthy and things like that. But doing a couple times a week of going on cardio machines or going outside and walking or jogging if you have the ability to do that, if that's something you like, but just get out and get moving. So what you don't want to do is what you see a lot online, which is go and be on the treadmill for 45 minutes, eat 1,000 calories, and oh, by the way, you're going to drop all this weight, because number one, that's not sustainable, but number two, your body's going to hoard as much of that fat as possible because it's literally starving, and it's not getting the nutrients. And it's like, hey, we don't know what's going on here, so we're going to store all this stuff just in case we don't get enough food. And people think that's a myth. It's not. Your body's going to store that for fuel because it doesn't, want to starve. So in order to avoid that, you probably, not for everybody, but that's why like our weight loss program and our meal plan program is really good, because we customize it to you. But you're probably not eating enough food. Um, Generally speaking. Now, there are obviously other cases where people might be eating too much or the wrong types of food. And when I say wrong, we've had many videos on that, but ultra processed foods. But when we go back to just the amount of calories, just in general, probably not eating enough, and it sounds counterproductive or counterintuitive, I should say, that uh, eat more food to lose body fat doesn't sound right, but it actually is. So for me as a competitor back then, starting out, my hormones were out of whack. So body fat would kind of stick there for longer. It would definitely pile up a lot faster and was hard to get rid of. Now, hormones are in check. And so now I'm doing cardio 40 minutes a day right now. I'm a physique competitor 8 weeks out from a show at this point when we're filming. So that's completely different than anything I would ever have my clients here as a personal trainer do. I would never, ever recommend that unless they were some type of an athlete, or had some kind of a thing, because where I'm headed now with body fat is not somewhere that's sustainable, nor would I recommend it for any length of time unless they're similar to me, where it's going to be a short period of time, then going back to more of a natural, body fat, body weight. So there's a lot of misinformation, but really the best way is to just keep yourself moving, Steve. And, if you're not sure of what that means to you, you know, ask a personal trainer like we have here at Parkway Athletic Club. We have, a lot of great trainers here. And, even if you're not in the area, your local, health club probably has personal trainers. Go find out what's right for you, and then it'll be more effective and it'll be more long lasting.
You know, the whole eating thing is people say all of a sudden, and I was talking to my wife about this. We went out to dinner and we saw these people with their kids, and their kids were fat and they were playing on their video games and they were eating junk and drinking soda. And I mean, these were 10-year-olds, not 10-year-olds. And people don't realize that, okay, by the time that kid, if he keeps doing that stuff when he's 25, he's going to be a mess. And you can't just People don't have the patience, especially probably in our culture. They don't have the patience to change your body. So what do? I'm just going to eat way less and exercise more. That's never going to work in the long run. It's just not. You're not going to be able to stick with it, and it's not going to work in the long run. So you have to change your lifestyle. Do something that you're going to do for the rest of the life, or for the rest of your life. That means you're going to eat the same way in general, and you're going to do the same amount of exercise forever. And that could take years for your body to get healthy. But when you get healthy, the weight's going to come off, the fat's going to come off, and guess what? It's going to stay off. You can't just keep cutting your calories and doing more cardio and think that you're going to keep that off, or you're going to keep going and you're going to keep getting leaner and leaner, because you're not. Your body
Right.
is going to resist you. Your body's going to fight back. It's about being healthy, eating healthy whole foods, getting your protein right, and lifting weights. Resistance training is the most important. Why? Because every pound of muscle is precious. Every pound of muscle changes your body composition. Every pound of muscle makes you more healthy. And I was telling you before we turned this on, the Dr. What's his name? O'Mara. He's a visceral fat doctor, and he does scans on people, and he talks about the best nutrition programs to eliminate visceral fat and the best type of exercise to remove or reduce visceral fat. And he says it's interval training, high intensity interval training. And he sees the people that do a lot of cardio, like marathon runners and stuff, they have a tendency to have more visceral fat. And, a marathon runner is going to have less muscle, because your body wants to be lighter to perform what you're forcing it to do. Your body's always going to adjust. But like you said, if you even want to call it cardio, I go for a walk 3-4 times a week, about 20 minutes in the neighborhood out in the sun. But when I'm in the gym, I always push the sled 3 to 5 times. That's it. I push that sled forward and I pull it back across our functional room. And that's what I do. And I feel as healthy as I've ever felt. And I like being in the gym. But the cardio, adding cardio is like cutting your calories. And cutting your calories can cause your body to resist what you're doing. You have to be patient. You have to keep your calories up at a healthy level. Keep your nutrients up, getting lots of healthy food, whole foods, real food, and then be patient and let your body do what it wants to do. It will do it. It might take years. And again, in our culture, we don't have the patience to wait years. And so I'm not going to eat, and that won't work.
Yeah, and a lot of times, Steve, you're right. It's like I'm gonna exercise more and I'm gonna eat all this less, and then I reach this plateau and oh gosh, I must need to cut my calories again. The problem isn't calorie. Well, it is the calories that you're eating or not eating. The problem is, as you touched on, when we're not building muscle, we're not strength training, and I'm not just talking about coming in the gym and lifting weights, which is my preferred method. But if you don't have access to a gym, or maybe you want to start somewhere else, calisthenics, doing different things with your own body weight. But what we need to do is we need to build that precious muscle, because with more muscle we need more energy. What is that? Calories. It burns more calories, so that helps that metabolism. So what happens when you don't eat enough, when we go on these crash diets, and oh, I'm going to eat 1,200 calories, oh no, I'm not losing weight, so now I'm going to eat 1,100, 1,000, whatever the case might be, you're just crashing your metabolism. And that is very, very difficult, especially if you've been doing it over time. That's when that metabolism really starts slowing to kind of meet what you're feeding it. Because our bodies, they don't want to work any harder than they absolutely have to. So as we're forcing it to, we're consuming less calories, we're forcing our body to slow. And then guess what? We go, you know what? This diet isn't working anymore. This 1,000 calories is horrible. So I'm going to go back to eating 2,000 calories a day. Well, what happens when we do that? We gain a whole bunch of weight, when in reality, had we maybe just ate 2,000 calories of whole foods to begin with and just added some, strength training and maybe a little bit of cardio, we probably would have lost weight at a nice, slower, constant pace, but our body fat would be going down in a nice, constant way. Not overnight, but as you said, Steve, we don't have a whole lot of patience, especially in our culture here. We want everything done yesterday. But where we got with body fat, that didn't happen overnight either. So we were more than patient to allow ourselves to get to a certain area, certain weight, certain, BMI, all those things. You got to be patient to get it back down to where your body wants to be. Because, like you said, it'll get there. It wants to be in a certain spot that's kind of your own personal, unique kind of health area. It wants to stay in that weight range, body fat range to be healthy for you. But you got to be patient to get it there. There's no overnight tricks. There's no crazy cardio that you can do to get there, cutting your calories, all those different things. Yes, we want to cut the calories if we're at an extreme, surplus, but that's why you work with, trainers and nutritionists, nutrition coach, somebody who can explain what you need. But even if you don't work with any of those types of people, look at what you're eating, switch to the whole foods first and go from there. Because then, at least you're taking in all the nutrients that you need, and it'll be a whole different world when you do that because your body's starting to get these nutrients that it got very little or none from the food you were eating. So you're going to feel different, which is fantastic. And then you just kind of go from there, adding in exercise, but always look at the diet. Because if we just go and we eat like garbage, but we go do 50 minutes of cardio to burn off the extra calories, it's not going to do anything. You have to have your diet in check, because as the saying goes, that I've heard a million times, I've heard this a lot recently on a lot of different places, can't outrun a bad diet. And that's so very true. I've said that for a long time as well. You got to get your food, your meals down first, and add in, that great exercise, strength training, number one, cardio, number two. And, having both of those things after you get your meals in check is going to make a tremendous difference.
I agree. So, David, if people want to follow you online or find out what you're doing with your competitions, how do they do that?
So they can find me on Instagram, Steve, at David Wright _fitness. It's got my whole fitness journey, where I'm at right now with my show prep and that kind of stuff. And at Wright Fitness Training on Instagram as well for more of the personal training side of things.
All right. Thanks for being with us, David.
Thanks, Steve.